Commissioner, I want to circle back to our conversation about the Budget Implementation Act. I'm going to read an excerpt to you from it. Quote, "A minister may, by order for a specified validity period of not more than 3 years and on any terms that the minister considers appropriate, exempt an entity from the application of a provision of an Act of Parliament, except the Criminal Code, if the minister is responsible for the act, and specifically that, quote, the minister may exclude information that, in the minister's opinion, would be inappropriate to make publicly accessible for reasons that include safety or security considerations or the protection of confidential or personal information," end quote. It seems to me that there's an absence of safeguards here, because we're looking at the opinion of a minister to make a decision about whether or not to allow for the publication of a decision to create an exemption to an act of Parliament. And for the same reason that it ought not to apply to the Criminal Code, I posit it ought not to apply to the Conflict of Interest Act, and the same to the Lobbying Act. And I'm interested in your opinion for the very reason that this matter is under consideration before the House, and frankly, this stands to limit your ability as an independent officer of Parliament to discharge the watchdog role that Canadians expect you to be able to discharge.
This is your interpretation of C-15, and undoubtedly, if C-15 in its present form is enacted, this particular issue will be litigated at some point in time. And I hear your interpretation. I'm not sure I necessarily agree with it, but as I told you before, it's not an act, and I didn't expect to be asked for you to comment on a bill that's before Parliament. But once it is enacted and fully, I certainly do not see that the action under that act and the provision that you act automatically protect you from the Conflict of Interest Act and allow you to take decisions which benefit you. Well, not you, I mean, the person involved.
Yeah, I think the core problem is, and the reason that I raised this with you today, is that we have an opportunity to address this before the matter is voted on by members of the House. I think that a minister could legally conceal information that you need to assess whether a conflict exists, and that's the fundamental problem with this provision.
Yeah, I understand your position. As I say, undoubtedly this will be litigated if ministers take that position. And we will see what the courts have to say. Or else, since the bill is still in committee, you can amend it before it gets passed.
I mean, we would litigate those issues if we knew, if we were to ever know about the decisions that were taken, and that's the problem with secret orders. I have just over a minute in this round left.
But on that point, again, I keep saying, if it is that it's normally prohibited, but an exemption has been granted, surely somebody is going to say, on what basis are you doing it? The Act says no, and then it's the only answer the minister can say is because I exempted it. So it is not secret.
Well, it says the minister may exclude information that, in the minister's opinion, would be inappropriate to make publicly accessible for reasons that include personal information. It's a pretty broad scope, and who is going to test the minister's judgment? That's why decisions are to be gazetted. That's why they're published in the Canada Gazette. That's why we have reports tabled in Parliament. That's why we have independent officers of Parliament. It's so that we have transparency, and when politicians are able to take decisions in secret based on their opinion, then it seriously erodes the public's confidence, Canadians' confidence in our democratic institutions, and the executive should not seek, nor should they be given this level of power.
I'm going to have to
Two
leave it
things
there.
with your answer. A, what's personal information, how you determine that. And secondly, if your scenario is true and plays out, etc., then the electors will have a negative affection, and the electors can obviously remedy the situation. So, I mean, it is a pretty risky scenario that you paint here, that somebody will deliberately do this in order to protect their conflict of interest.
If you give a monkey
Thank
a
you.
loaded gun, whose fault is it when someone gets shot? The person
Thank
who
you.
gave him the gun or the monkey?
Thank you, Mr. Barrett.